Hello, I'm Tamara Banks, and welcome to Denver Decides. This community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Interneighborhood Cooperation, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Our mission today is to present a candidate form in anticipation of the general election coming up on Tuesday, November 6th. Among other offices, this election includes the candidates vying to represent constituents in Colorado's State House from District Number 9. House District 9 is located in the southeast corner of Denver. Our format includes timed opening and closing statements from each of the candidates that will be followed by rounds of questions that have been submitted by the organizers of the forum. Since we do have a time limit, we may not be able to get to all of the submitted questions. All of the candidates will answer all of the questions, and all of their responses will be timed. Our timers are out in front so the candidates can see them. So let's begin by meeting the candidates vying to represent District 9 in the Colorado State House of Representatives. The candidates are standing left to right, facing the audience, in the order that their names appear on the ballot in November. So beginning at my left is Emily Sirota, and to Ms. Sirota's left is Bob Lane. Let's give our candidates a big, warm round of applause, and thanks for being here this evening. And one more note to the candidates. On behalf of the forum organizers, the audience here tonight, and our viewers at home, we sincerely urge you to be honest, direct, and forthright to help the voters distinguish one candidate from another. So we will begin with 1-minute opening statements from each candidate. We will proceed in ballot order with these statements. So, once again, starting at my left, Ms. Sirota, your opening statement, please. And again, you have 1 minute.
Good evening, and thank you, Tamara, the League of Women Voters, Channel 8, and the INC for hosting this evening. I'm Emily Sirota, and I'm running to represent House District 9 at the Colorado State Legislature. I'm a mom and a social worker, and I ask for your vote tonight because this 2018 election is so critical to the future of Colorado. I believe in health care for all, strong public education, common sense gun laws that keep our communities safe, a living wage, and a clean environment. Through my experience working in public policy on issues of healthcare, education, economic development, and the workforce, I have a firm understanding of the legislative process at both the state and the federal level. As a working parent who understands the challenges that confront our Southeast Denver families, I will work tirelessly with you to address the affordability crisis that we face in education, healthcare, childcare, housing, and good-paying jobs. I ask for your vote so that we can work together to fulfill the potential of this great state of Colorado.
All right, thank you. And now, Mr. Lane, 1 minute.
I'm Bob Lane. Thanks also to all the hosts here. I'm a 35-year business financial professional. I can honestly say I've never received a guaranteed paycheck in my entire life. I know what it's like to try to make a living out there with the excess taxes and government regulation that all businesses are subjected to. I look at running for office as a community service. It's not a profession to me. I'm doing this to help the fellow citizens, inject some solid business ideas. I have a plan to restructure Colorado's healthcare along the lines of the life insurance industry, which is extremely successful because the government stayed out of it. And I'll do this to jumpstart this by reallocating all of the voluntary taxes we pay from marijuana to the lottery, to casino gambling, to the new sports betting, and expanded casino gambling. And my plan is to totally restructure Colorado health care to lower the premiums and also privatize Medicaid along the same lines.
All right, thank you. Now, our first question for the candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. So we will start in reverse order from the opening statements, and we'll begin with you, Mr. Bob Lane. The question is, Colorado has fallen near the bottom of all states in funding education. What specifically would you like to see done to change that?
If you read my platform at laneforcolorado.org, I actually have a plan to totally restructure Colorado's health care. We need to end the idea of a college degree and retitle it as career training. And I think it should be totally networked with private industry. We should pay for up to 4 years of college for students that actually meet a set of qualifications and choose a career path that could be funded by private industry. The whole idea of a college education and the student loan and all this whole system is collapsing. We need to really rethink what our education system is about from the top down. Most of the opponents always talk about starting from the kindergarten up. I would want to restructure it from the top down so that education begins with the end in sight, which is a profitable career to every student.
All right, thank you. And Emily Sirota, your answer to that question, please.
This is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. I've worked in the field of education and education policy for quite some time, and it is so shameful that Colorado ranks so low in terms of per pupil funding and how we pay our teachers, that we have so many teachers working second jobs because they are unable to afford the communities that they are teaching in. And so I support Amendment 73. This will be a reasonable start. There has been a very large collection of folks who have come together to work very hard to try and restructure some of the way that we are funding education so that we can put more money into the classroom so that we can better recruit and retain our educators. But this is an issue that starts at birth, and one priority for me will be to fully fund full-day kindergarten and really expand that to funding universal pre-K. Because we know that when children get that great start early in life, that sets them up for a lifetime of success.
All right, thank you both. Now on to the next question, and Ms. Sirota, we'll start with you. This question is, by many measures, marijuana has been a success. Do you think it is working well, and what tweaks might the state still need to make?
I think that it is working reasonably well. We were the first state to endeavor this project, and we have a booming industry, and it is bringing great resources to the state. I think that decriminalizing marijuana is a really important step to criminal justice reform, and so I think that we ought to work together with the industry to ensure that the regulations that are in place are common sense. One important issue has to do with banking and how the industry can do this in a proper way. And so I look forward to continuing to work with the industry to examine better ways to move forward. But on the whole, I think it's working well.
Thank you. Mr. Lane, same question.
Oh, I actually think overall it's been a disaster for our state because you look at the exploding homeless populations and what's going on. Nobody's really thought about how to fund all of that. We have people moving to Colorado for the wrong reasons. I work in private business, so I see it all the time. But that said, I agree with changing the regulations, making it much more easier. I actually know people that are in the business. The regulations are so onerous, they have a hard time even making money, processing the cash, because it's not legal under federal law to have a bank account. But that said, I have a game plan to use the tax, part of the sin taxes we would call it, or the voluntary taxes, reallocate it totally to health care, which is our biggest problem in this state. I know everybody wants to talk about education, but health care is about to totally blow us all up. The cost is just running out of control.
All right, thank you both. On to the next round of questions, and Bob, will start with you. The question is, name two important issues that you pledge to reach across the aisle to the other party to work on for Colorado.
I'd say healthcare and small business. I think healthcare, we talk about socializing care and stuff. I was looking at the numbers last year on just Medicaid alone. The United States spent about $580 billion. You could confiscate the entire fortunes of the 5 richest men, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and 2 others. I forgot the other 2. But the total confiscation, if we took all of their assets, put it towards Medicaid, it only totals about $444 billion, which isn't even maybe 2/3 of 1 year of what we're spending on just Medicaid. This isn't talking about Medicare. This isn't talking about what private health insurance costs. This is our biggest problem. And I think we need to restructure the free market in healthcare, get it back to a free market. And that's what I've developed a system on. I've been in the insurance business, the financial services, my entire career. Life insurance works very efficiently because the government stayed out of it. We need to get health insurance back to the same system.
All right, thank you. Emily, your turn to answer.
Healthcare is an essential issue that the legislature must deal with in 2019, and it will take working across the aisle. But healthcare is not a Democratic issue, a Republican issue, an unaffiliated issue. It affects all of us. It affects us in urban areas, in rural areas, and we will have to come together across the aisle, our Denver and Front Range legislators, as well as the West Slope legislators. We will have to come together to come up with a solution for Colorado, because the number of folks who are uninsured, underinsured, and really struggling with the rising cost of health insurance, accessing quality care, the rising cost of prescription drug prices must be dealt with, and we can do this in a bipartisan fashion.
All right, thank you. So we'll continue on with more questions for candidates vying for the State House of Representatives, the seat in District 9. And Emily, we will start with you first. The question is, gentrification and home affordability has become a major issue in our city. What can be done at the state level to help?
It is absolutely a challenging issue, and one that I hear from as I'm out knocking on doors and talking to constituents in the district. Folks are struggling with the rising cost of housing and being able to afford to stay in the communities that they have grown up in for generations. And so it's important that the legislature work with our municipalities. Denver has some money set aside to address affordable housing. It's essential that we are looking at not only middle-income housing, but low-income housing too, and ensuring that we don't leave anyone behind. So I think it will be a partnership between the state and our cities.
Okay. Bob, same question, please.
Actually, it's not the job of government to provide housing or anything else to anybody else. In fact, I think government programs like the Section 8 programs and stuff, where we're purposely subsidizing people into areas where they really can't afford to live, are actually contributing to the shortage. Especially at a time like this, if we're talking about Denver, there's so many qualified employees trying to move to the city that are ready, willing, and able to pay rent, but they can't find places. That said, we also have some major problems with the attorneys. Builders have a hard time building anything because of the liability risk. So I'd want to address both of those issues. Getting it back to the free market again, I mean, we need to free up the construction process to build homes, and we need to let the free market do what it's supposed to do, get the government out of there.
All right, thank you. Our next question, and Bob, you'll be the first one to answer this time. Who are the major contributors to your election campaign?
Me, myself, and I. As I said, it's amazing the liberal machines I've been up against in the years that I have done this. I've been a candidate 4 times now. And the amount of money that's spent from special interest groups to beat me, it's incredible. I had 2 big supporters in the last election, Jake Jabs and another big name that people don't know. But it's scary when you think this is a job that pays all of $25,000 part-time. And we're spending, in my opponent's primary alone, I don't know how much money was spent. We're spending as much as $500,000 on one of these races between the 2 sides. So I'm basically funding myself. I've got a few small contributors that might put money in. I'm basically running on the ideas. I think I have superior ideas and superior business solutions. It's a gerrymandered district, so I have almost no chance. But I'm doing this as a community service to give people a choice.
Thank you. Emily, same question, please.
Well, I look forward to the next filing report, because I actually didn't see any contributions filed for you to this point. So I will look forward to seeing your filing.
Just got one.
But my campaign, I am so proud of the grassroots campaign that we are running. My campaign is being funded by people, by individuals, and the last time I did the calculation, it was under $40 was the average contribution, and from folks who are really just so excited to contribute to a grassroots campaign that they feel is representative of the values that are important to them.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, Emily, you'll be the first one to answer. If you could change one current Colorado law, which one would it be? How would you change it and why?
I think that we would probably start with Tabor. That Tabor is preventing our state from the potential that it holds. We are one of the wealthiest states and one of the wealthiest nations, and we ought to be able to do better. We shouldn't be ranking fourth from the bottom in per pupil spending. Our teachers, as I said, shouldn't have to be working 2 jobs. We shouldn't have crumbling roads and bridges, but this is the result that we find ourselves in because our hands are tied, that we are not able to address the growth that we have seen in our state and in the city of Denver, in large part because our hands are tied by Tabor and Gallagher. And I believe that this is supposed to be a representative democracy, and people have the opportunity to vote on who represents them every 2 or 4 years here in the state. And if you don't like the way your legislators are spending, vote them out.
Bob, same question.
Oh, just real quick, I would make the entire state an enterprise zone, not just certain areas. I would eliminate capital gains taxes on the Colorado tax return to attract capital into the state. I would limit taxes on any small business that has 4 or more employees. The owner shouldn't pay much taxes. All these things contribute to boosting our economy. And I would end the physical presence requirement that the Colorado State Insurance Department is imposing on health insurance companies. Unless you build an office building in Denver or something, you can't sell health insurance in the state. So most people don't realize that's why we only have 3 or 4 choices on our health insurance.
Right, thank you. So this next round is what we love to call the lightning round. And that means that I ask a question, and you get to say yes, no, or pass. No expanding, and then we'll move on to the next person who answers. So we will start with Emily first, and then Bob, and we'll go back and forth, okay? So first question, starting with Emily. Do you get your news from a traditional paper, such as a printed on paper?
No.
Some.
Starting with Bob. Should fracking be allowed within 501 to 2,500 feet of homes or businesses?
I'd say about 1,000 feet.
Yes or no or pass?
Oh, yes.
No.
Do you plan to vote for state amendments Y and Z regarding the legislative and congressional redistricting process?
Yes.
Yes.
Should Mile High Stadium be rebuilt elsewhere to make way for more housing development?
No.
No.
Do you or any family member own a firearm?
No.
Yes.
Amendment 64, legalizing the sale of marijuana in Colorado, passed nearly 6 years ago. Before the law passed or after, have you sampled what the industry has to offer?
No.
Yes.
Do you know what a selfie is?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you plan to vote for or against the Denver ballot issue to increase the city sales tax to provide funding for mental health?
No.
Yes.
Do you currently own or do you plan to own an electric car?
Yes.
No.
Do you plan to vote for the state ballot issue to increase setback requirements from homes for new oil and gas developments?
No.
Yes.
Okay. Let's give the candidates a round of applause for that one. You can exhale now. Now, for the next rounds of questioning, it'll be up to the candidates to ask a question of one another. So you'll each get a chance to ask a question, and hopefully the opponent will have an answer for you. So we'll begin with Bob. Bob, you can ask Emily a question, and Emily, you have 1 minute to answer.
Have you studied economics in your educational background? Did you ever read books by Adam Smith?
So, yeah, is that just a yes or no question? You can ask like a whole.
Adam Smith, Adam Smith was the British economist that totally defined how free markets are supposed to operate. And we had the invisible hand. He described what competition is that keeps markets moving, that puts the incentive into everything, the profit incentive. I assume you've read Karl Marx.
So, is that your question? Have you read Karl Marx? Have you read?
Oh,
Just one
just
question.
asking, have you studied economics?
I was a political science major in my undergrad in college. And so I read a lot of political philosophers, studied some economics, and have worked in government and policy, and believe that our system is fundamentally broken. I don't believe that we need more free reign of markets. We need smart regulation that is protecting people. Right now, there is too much focus on profits and not enough focus on what's happening in our communities and who is getting left behind, which at this point it's pretty much the 99%.
Okay.
So
So we'll
you lean
continue
more
on.
towards
Just
Karl
one
Marx.
question, one answer. We'll continue on now. Emily, it's your turn to ask Bob a question, and Bob, you'll have 1 minute to answer.
Bob, do you believe that there is a problematic culture around sexual harassment at the Colorado Capitol? And if yes, how would you address it? And if not, why not?
Well, it's a hard question because it seems like this is getting to be such a broad term anymore as to what is sexual harassment, what isn't sexual harassment. I know the person that you're trying to replace was accused of sexual harassment. The person that you, Paul Rosenthal. How do you define that nowadays? I remember in my earlier career, I used to tell a lot of women how great they looked when they came to work. That could almost be sexual harassment nowadays. So I'm almost worried about what direction all this is going. How far are we going to go down the path that we're going to get to the point where everybody's afraid to do anything? I agree there are some egregious cases that need to be addressed. But we need to really think about how far down this road we're going to go as to what is and what isn't.
Okay. Bob, your turn again to ask Emily a question. And you have to ask a question, and then
Sorry.
Emily, question versus a non-question question. And then Emily, you'll have 1 minute to answer.
So are you looking at this as a career, running for office?
I am running because I believe in public service. I believe that our community ought to be represented by someone with strong values that is ensuring that folks are able to afford their health care, that they have good schools to go to in their neighborhood, that we are ensuring that the most vulnerable members of our community are being taken care of. And so I look at this as an opportunity to serve my community, my neighbors, my state.
Okay. And Emily, your turn to ask a question. And Bob, you'll have 1 minute to answer.
Bob, do you believe the vast majority of climate scientists who say that human activity over the last 50 years has warmed up our planet? And what do you believe the role of the legislature can be in this issue of climate change?
I don't think climate change is caused directly by man. I totally agree with I want to control pollution. Everybody wants pollution controlled just for aesthetic reasons. I actually have solar panels on one of my houses, 27 solar panels. Do you?
Yes.
And actually, it helps, but the way the system's set up, it's a ridiculous situation where we have to have 2 meters. The way the government's implemented it is crazy. But I think we should talk in terms of controlling pollution, not stopping some kind of hocus pocus global warming. That's what did the dinosaurs do to cause global warming? So.
Okay. That ends our Q&A, and that brings us to the end of the Q&A, and now it's time for closing statements. So you will each have 1.5 minutes for your closing statements, and we'll reverse the order of the opening statement. So that means, Bob, you'll start first. Bob Lane, 90 seconds for your closing statement, please.
I've spent my career in private financial sector. My master's in accounting. I've been a accountant, I've been a banker, I've been an insurance agent, I've been a stockbroker. I've combined that all into overall financial advising. I'm living out there. Most of my clients own businesses. I see what they're dealing with, trying to make a living, trying to comply with the taxes, the onerous regulations we have in this state. Just for example, myself, as a self-employed person, my health insurance plan for the bronze plan, which I'm required to buy under ACA, is $650 a month. And that's a $7,000 deductible. And they're already talking about my premium's probably going to go to $800 a month next year. Flip side of that, somebody on Medicaid paid zero premium, zero deductible. Tell me how this is a workable system. And that's why my entire issue in this campaign is doing something about our terrible healthcare system in Colorado. I would like to buy what's called a stop-loss umbrella policy using the voluntary taxes I talked about reallocating. Well, we restructure all the people under 65 to be on a system similar to Medicare, where the big claims are paid by the state fund, which is funded by the voluntary taxes I talked about, lottery, marijuana, gambling. And then you only be responsible for covering yourself for, say, the first 100,000 of medical expenses. And we had also privatized Medicaid, taking the federal grants and everything, putting that out to bid from a private insurance company to administer the Medicaid program. And people should be required to work for Medicaid.
Thank you. Now, Emily Sirota, you've got 90 seconds for your closing statement, please.
I grew up in a small town, and I'm the product of a public education. I was raised by a teacher and a pediatrician who taught me and my brothers that the most important thing in life is not seeking money and power, but rather service to the community to ensure that nobody gets left behind. I've tried to live these values that I was taught from an early age as I've worked in government, as a social worker, and engaging with my community. I'm running a different kind of campaign to be a different kind of public servant. As a candidate, I reject corporate PAC money because as your representative, I will work at the Capitol on your behalf, not the corporate interests that have too much control at our legislature today. Our taxpayer dollars ought to be invested wisely in our schools, our infrastructure, and our healthcare systems to benefit the people. When you cast your vote for Emily Sirota, you can feel confident that the community's priorities and voice will be top of my mind. Thank you.
All right. Now it's the audience's turn to show our appreciation to the candidates here. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you both. Well done. We hope we have given you a fair look at each candidate vying to represent you in the Colorado State House of Representatives from District 9. Our thanks also to the Denver Decides partners, including Interneighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters of Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. Remember, the election is Tuesday, November 6th. Let your voice be heard, be sure you are registered, and be sure to vote. For complete election information online, go to denverdecides.com. I'm Tamara Banks. Thanks so much for being with us.